Hi, welcome back. This is going to be the fourth video in my channel, and as a reminder that we began creating a social media application using Android Studio, and uh, let's just begin right in. So, at the previous video, we finished our login and register classes. We literally finished the function and overall the beginning of our application. And I said that we'll be talking about shared preferences. So this video is going to be based on it simply. So yeah, let's start. Shared preference is basically a client-side database. Uh, Shared preferences stores all the data, uh, literally all the data inside user's phone, inside the application's cache. So yeah, let me um let me begin from creating a Java class first. It'll be inside our models package, and I'll call it let me call it prefer shared shared let's say that shared pref manager. Yep. So as you've guessed by the name, this is where we will type all the functions, all the helper functions to store um, any data. So the data is stored inside the application's data, and whenever user deletes the application, the data also gets deleted. That's how it works, literally. So Shared Preference Manager basically uh, takes string keys, and will mostly use string keys to define the data types uh, and the data itself, actually. So as an alternative, we may use SQLite or SQLite, whatever, which is literally being a client-side database. So there are two options, SQLite or Shared Pref Manager, or excuse me, Shared Preference. So in this case, we'll be using Shared Preferences in our project. We'll not use SQLite because Uh, I don't see any reason to use SQLite inside our application um, because it's not going to be something large or something big. So we'll just use shared preferences to store uh, simple data. But if you want, I may actually launch another playlist, another tutorial playlist on using SQLite to save some data. So you may use it as a reference and change the shared preference to that. But you may actually use both, whatever. Um, so if you wanna use SQLite, I mean right now, you may just Google it. There are tons of tutorials in YouTube. Yeah, you may even go to official Android Studio website and see all the information about SQLite right there. So let's begin with shared preferences. As I said, we'll store all the data inside string keys or whatever keys. So it is going to be private static final. First of all, we need to define the name of our shared preferences. Shared preference name. She's going to be um, whatever social YouTube social uh, shared preference name. As you may have actually seen, I'm not. I'm not really creative on naming variables or some other values. So private static final string, we are going to save currently for now two data. The first one is by email. So let's type it, email. Second one is by ID. We'll store it in string format, which we'll use uh, later. We'll use method getString to just convert it. It just takes the first argument of getting all the data from shared preference is actually being a string, so it doesn't really matter. Um, we will type KID and we'll actually name it user. We'll put user because there might be other emails later in the future. So yeah, just two data that we need um, because we even have a ready constructor for that we made in the previous video, which takes exactly two arguments. Um, yep. So um, shared preference needs an instance of itself. So, so I'm going to create an instance variable first. Then I'm going to create uh, an instance function next, which is being literally constructor. But before that, we actually have to take the context value, since we'll be using context of our application to get the data from shared preferences and to also save the data into shared preferences. Basically, we'll be building the overall context of our application, right? So private static, the instance obviously should be synchronized. Get instance, which is going to take context as argument. Yep. So I will say that if our instance variable is actually being null, we are going to say that the value will be equal to context. So we forgot about the main constructor. Okay. In this case, since it is synchronized, we are returning instance. Yep, we are done. Um, now, uh, the only thing left is to define the functions that we will going to be using to store the data. It is pretty identical to the model class of any object. In the model class, we have getter and setter methods. So exactly as it is in model class, we should also define getter and setter methods inside our shared preferences, obviously to get the data and to save the data. So no, that's actually going to be public. I'm going to create a void function. I'm going to name it user no, user, just user login. You will take user object as an argument. And here it comes that we'll be using shared preferences library. We'll assign a value of get shared preferences from our context, our name, which we assigned before, and the uh, mode should be private due to security issues. So, and here, no, wait. Shared preferences. We are using editor to put the data into, yeah, to basically put the data. Um, editor puts, in this case, integer key ID and user get ID. The same goes for put string, since our email is being string value. So at the end we say apply. We have two methods. Either you use apply or you use commit. In this case, we're using apply because I know why, but I think commit is depreciated or yes, consider using the Android Studio is actually advising us to use apply to the better operation of shared preferences. Um, so user login, this is basically our set, we have setter method. We have to now get the user data. Uh, so it is going to be simple. We're creating a user type function using shared preferences. Again, getting shared preferences. That's what you have to do always to get the shared preferences. So return new user. Simply going to return new user. Okay. Mm, shared preferences get integer, which the key of which is ID that we signed it to, yes, to data and -1. Comment shared preferences get string key email null. You may actually use whatever value type and whatever, just because the data anyways will be saved and stored, and of course it will be changed. So the base should go as null and -1, so which I'm of course using. So these are two methods to save the data and to get the data. We may go ahead and create, let's say, one function to clear the data. Basically, you may ask, what if user wants to log out the application? In this case, you may also use shared preferences. You may create a logout function inside. Um, for example, what I can say, for example, you may create a button, a logout button, and inside of that button, you basically take uh, the method that we'll be creating now as a reference and execute it whenever the user presses that logout button. So public void logout shared preferences um, mctx get shared preference name context mode private return. Oh no, wait. Uh, we're using void method, so we should use editor. shared preferences edit, right? So in this case, um, we'd like to clear the data. So we've created the editor variable. Just simply type clear and type apply. And what we'd like to do once we've logged out, once we've cleared all the data, I'd like to close whenever activity is currently the user on and go back to, no, we are actually beginning from register class. So go back to the register class. Yep, simply that's it. First, you take import the library. So you get the shared preference, then you clear it, and you apply the changes, and you start a new activity. That's it. So the perfect use mm, for shared preferences is, for example, a remember me function that you usually see on most social media applications. So I'm not going to implement it inside my application. I mean, I'm just going to tell you how to do that. You first create, in whatever page, login or register, you create a radio button, and the text is going to be obviously remember me. You're going to take this radio button uh, and you're going to reference it uh, right inside the Java class, and you give just the functionality check as it is with set on click listener. You have, for example, button login. You can is activated. It is actually is something is active or uh, is clicked, so, something like that. Actually, you may Google it up or just type is, and you'll see all the suggestions that Android Studio is giving for the radio button. Once it is clicked and active, and once the user just logged in, you can actually use shared preferences and save the data. If the radio button is not active, you will do nothing with shared preferences. You'll just ignore it. So the data will not be saved. And the next time user opens up the application, uh, it will begin right from the first page. But if you save the data, uh, the login and register pages should not open, and instead, the main activity should begin. So yeah, it's pretty simple actually. And now the only function is left is a checker function, as I said, which is going to be called as isLogged, right? So isLogged is basically the function that we use when we check if the user uh, is logged in or if the data is basically saved, right? So go create shared preferences. We're gonna get it. Context mode private. We simply return shared preferences, get string, key email, which is, excuse me, which is not being null. So if the data is null, then something in shared preference exists, right? And that's why the user is logged in. So we go back to our login and register classes. And now we begin just simply implementing it. So first of all, I'd like to do is, in the previous video, I said that uh, currently the user, after going into main activity, after successfully logging in, it can go back to register a login activity, which is something inappropriate. Um, we have to fix that so that you won't be able to go back. To do that, we just gonna type, and notice that I had all these intent and start of activity methods outside the callback, outside the retrofit callback. But now I placed it inside. I've created simple check inside the login. Inside the login, uh, yeah, so that uh, the login could have a check if the user exists. I mean, if it doesn't exist. So, mm, yeah, simply that's it. And I put it inside the else, all the function that I had it outside. So, yeah. Here we'll do. Uh, oh wait, I actually talked. So we'll do one line of code, which is finish. That's it. Well, whenever we start another activity, in this case, it's being main activity, we just finish the current activity, which is being login. That's it. In this case, switching between login register classes, we also have to finish uh, because we have to finish the main thread and launch other thread. I think that's more appropriate than we were doing before. Uh, yeah, I will do one more code, one more line of code to get shared preference data. I mean to save. So in order to save the data uh, to shared preferences, I'm going to call our uh, shared preference instance that we had. Uh, I'm going to take context of the application to say user login, right? Um, and it is going to be actually user object, and the user object should be right above the shared preference. So this line of code is basically um, to store user data inside the shared preference. It is giving us an error because I think that I just forgot to. Oh, I just wrote private instead of public, so the synchronized instance should be public. Yeah, the kind of mistakes they they're really uh, they're really stupid actually. For example, if you forgot just to type this or just type any symbol or just typo errors, something like that. Um, okay, so this line of code saves the data to our shared preferences. I'm gonna go and put this also inside the register method right after declaring our user object. Yep. So now, oh, I'm going to also finish register activity inside each activity. I mean, inside each method. Um, so yeah, now what is left to do is to check if the user has logged in. Because if you don't check it, your application will begin from login or register activity. And whenever you do that, you may face a crash or eventually something will happen anyways because you have one data and when you're storing something else, it is like two different cars hitting each other. So, and also we don't want the login and register pages to open if we have something in data, right? So to do that, I'm simply going to mm, simply going to check if the user is uh, if the user is actually logged in. So shared preference manager get instance. In this case, since we're using it in the main thread, as I said, on create method is basically the main thread of each activity that we create. So um, I can use this to get the context of it. Is logged. If it is successful logged, we're gonna finish this activity and we can successfully start. Wait, yeah, we can start the main class. In this case, we're returning null. So I'm gonna copy this and paste inside also our login class, right? Yes. Good. So now we basically did everything. So this line of code, as I said, is literally to save user data inside the shared preference manager. Yep. So let's try to launch the application and see what happens. Basically, we can see what happens. What happens? Okay. As we can see, we can switch between pages, and if I go and register some, I don't know, some of this, now we can switch between fragments. Yeah, we successfully registered. Um, if we go back, as you can see, our application has been closed. But by the way, oh, oh yeah, whatever. Uh, we go back again, and you see that it opens up from the main activity, which is exactly what we want. Uh, One thing about shared preferences is that maybe I said it, I don't remember what I said like half an hour ago. If we uninstall it, all the data is always also going to be erased within our phone. So if we reinstall it again, we will have a completely new application. Let me log in simply using an existing email password is not identified. Yeah, our check is working great because I typed the wrong password. And now if we go back, uh, the application closes. We don't go back to, we didn't go back to the login page, which is good, which is exactly what we wanted. And now if we open it up again, we'll have main activity. You can switch between them, which is great. Yeah, that's it for now. I hope that I could explain something about shared preferences. So if you have any comments, feel free just to leave any comment down below, whatever. Um, it's really my pleasure to answer all your questions. I also have my Discord channel and Patreon page. You may subscribe. So in the next video, we'll begin from our fragments, uh, home fragment, friends fragment, profile fragment. We'll probably begin with profile fragment because we have to, I mean, create the profile page first, I guess. I guess that's right in and trendy in social media applications. So yeah, that's what we're going to do in the next video. Basically, that's it for today. Thanks for watching this video. Till the next one, have a good day.